Hello, continuing with our series of mastering your joint movements, your proprioception. Better proprioception, better awareness that your brain has of your joints, the better information from the nerves around the joints that your brain gets, the better it's able to predict your movements, and the better you will move. Hopefully the less pain you will have, less tightness you will have for those reasons. So we've been working, the first video I did was ankles and wrists, hands, feet, and I'm going to continue with that because there's so much there. There's so many joints there, so much good benefits you can get from that, so many good benefits. And an interesting thing you might think about is something called opposing joints as far as your brain goes. Your brain tends to associate your ankles and your wrists, and more specifically, let's say it's the right ankle, left wrist, right wrist, left ankle. So it kind of ties them together. And maybe if you've been in a yoga class, for instance, and you or somebody in the class, you notice as you're teaching it, move your toes, what do people start doing? They end up moving their hands, their fingers too a lot. I think that's an example of how your brain, we laugh about it, but if you give it a little attention, you think, oh, that's a way that a pattern that the brain works, a circuit, a loop. So you can turn that to your advantage. If you've got some wrist issues going on, go to your opposite ankle and vice versa, and see if improving the function of one helps the corresponding function of the other. So ankles and wrists. Let's go with the ankles. First video we did what we called a 6-position stretch, just being able to put your foot with the toes pointing in a neutral position down, neutral position up, that's 2. We had an inner rotated position down, inner rotated position up, that's 3 and 4. An outer rotated position down, outer rotated position up. So those were just kinds of positions and stretches. And now make it a little more dynamic and start to generate more control, more strength, more mobility by doing little circles in each of those 6 positions. And I want you to do, if you can, 3 circles, clockwise, 3 counterclockwise in each of those 6 positions. So I think if my math's right, that's a 6 times 6, which is like 108 different circles. So it's very simple. You would have, let's say, the neutral position, 1, 2, and you do that really slow and controlled as best you can. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. So it's not your big circle that you try to do, and not as fast as you can do it, because that could get really sloppy and you don't get the benefits. Slow, probably even slower than I'm doing it. All right, 6 circles in each of those 6 positions. 3, 3 times 6. All right. Let's go on down to the big toe. So lots of good stuff happens with the big toe. If you can't move your big toe up and down, start with just trying to move all your toes up and down as best you can. Keep working that. It's critical to your balance, to your foot function, your walk, your posture, your standing poses in yoga. So here's something you could try. I've been playing with this. Maybe you do your skin stimulation to help get a little input there. And then you're working on getting your toe moving straight up and down in a line like that. It'll want to go in and out, and it's probably pulled over to the side, but eventually you want to work your toe back to the midline. So maybe you use this as your artificial midline, your vertical line. You have a block, you could use a wall or something similar, and just see if you can start to get your toe, big toe, to move up and down along that straight forward line. And it might be that your toe's crooked and you still have to work it, but eventually you're trying to get the toe to move out, all right? Straight up and down. Maybe you start with all the toes up and down just to get the big toe moving in that line. And then maybe to keep the other toes, take them out of the picture, you put your block, just lightly cap it over those 4 toes. Now you've got the vertical line of the block on the inner edge of the big toe. See if you can move it up and down a few times to help get a little more sensory input into the vertical line. Get your brain to map that out a little more clearly, and then you go back to the other side and see if now it can move along that vertical line a little more easily. All right, now let's just go on with the big toe. I want you to try it. If it'll move up and down and side to side, and we can manually move it in a circle. Why can't you move your toe in a circle just like you would move your thumb? They're not quite the same, but the big toe has its own map in your brain. You can look that up. So improve that map. I want you to try to move your big toe in a circle. And rather than looking at it, I want you to close your eyes or not look at your toe and see if you can feel your big toe moving in a circle. Even if it's not really doing it, you're feeling the muscular actions that would create that movement. Feel more on the top of the foot, the inner edge of the foot, bottom of the foot, to help bring your attention to those areas where the muscles are contracting and relaxing and stretching. All right, we'll go on to the wrists. Last week the first video, we did some up and down movements of the wrists, and we did a little bit of side to side, but I want to revisit that again. There's an idea, a principle in physiology called the SAID principle, S-A-I-D. Stands for specific adaptation to imposed demand. Your body and your brain will adapt to the specific things that you do. So what you do makes a difference. That's what your body will learn to do and get better at doing. And when it comes to the wrist, what will happen a lot, people will do wrist circles, but what they're really doing is not moving their forearm or their wrist, they're just moving your hand, all right? Now that's good to be able to move your hand like that, but you also want to be able to move your wrist to have some mobility, because it might be that your hand is actually fixed in space and you need the mobility at your wrist. If you're going from downward dog into a plank, your hand is fixed. So it's a different movement, straightening and bending your elbow, for instance. Or if you're going from down dog into a handstand, it's a different action. I think you'll get benefit from it by learning to not move your hand so much and move your wrist. So think of it like this. And this exercise, this is moving my hand, right? My forearm's not moving, it's my hand. Here, I'm keeping my hand more fixed and moving my wrist up and down. So now my forearm and my elbow, it's hard to do it from the side, but it's something like that. In other words, these knuckles are staying fixed, all right? So from the front, it looks like that. You're doing them like that, okay? That's different from my arms not moving and my hands moving. Same thing with moving inside and outside. This is moving my hand, this is moving my wrist. So think of the base of your thumb, there at the inner wrist. Move the base of your thumb toward each other, move the outer wrist away from each other, and you can let the knuckles kind of curl in a little bit as you go out. So that lateral movement is like that of the wrists. You get good at that, try putting it together in circles. This is circling the hands, this is circling the wrists. I'll do that really slow. Up, wrists, out, down, back up. Knuckles are staying relatively flat, parallel to the floor. See if getting your wrists more mobile will help with your down dog, will help with your hand balances, for instance, because your hands are fixed in space. You need the mobility of your wrists, not your hands, and your shoulders. And we'll do more, go slow, watch yourself do it, get really accurate with it, get control. That's where the mastery comes. That's the specific adaptation to imposed demand. Bring your attention to it and you'll find more power in that way. All right, thanks. I rushed through that, but you can do it more slowly. All right, thanks.